Dear listeners, I have so much to tell you, and I often don't know where to start. It seems the world doesn't want to admit that sometimes we make mistakes, and that sometimes the wrong person gets punished for something they didn't do. Not all of us have been personally affected, but many of us have been impacted by this reality. And I feel like it's my responsibility to share these stories with you and to tell you what I've learned about wrongful convictions. So I'm so fortunate to be able to welcome back Pen for Justice. And last time we spoke about what has drawn them to this work and the kinds of things that they're passionate about. Today, maybe we can talk about some of the experiences you have had as part of this group. Maybe some of the individuals you've had the chance to speak to, or some of the cases you've worked on, or, anything else that you think is important to share.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. We could start off with one of our more recent events that happened. With our club being marketed as an innocence organization and just a social justice organization, we've had the opportunity to talk to a bunch of people who have been directly impacted by the criminal justice system. We had the opportunity to talk to one man specifically on death row in North Carolina, and that was super impactful. It was a dark conversation, but I think it was something that, a lot of students will never get the opportunity to talk about. And yeah, it was really great because he was talking about how, his experience was different because he acknowledges his guilt, but the way he was talking was very just insightful. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about something that like specifically stood out to them.
Okay. I I was really so I've talked to people I've had presentations even in classes with people who are incarcerated. Um and one thing I always struggle to, I guess, kind of understand is how some of them are so kind and nice in how they speak. And um with this particular person, his name's Jason. And he talked about his faith, and I thought that it was really beautiful to hear how he's been able to find that type of support. So he converted to Islam while on death row, and also what's like really beautiful about his story is he's also kind of become this pillar for other men on death row. Despite the circumstances he's in, he still pushes to create an environment for, the some of the most vulnerable people. Um,
Sure.
and yeah, he just hearing him speak and hearing about how, regardless of if he did the crime or not, I personally believe it's an injustice for a state to murder anybody. But so just to hear about such a strong, insane injustice that he's being put through, but him still being able to find it in himself to just be there for other people and truly care. Like, they've also started their own kind of organization where people can donate money to them and then they can pick where it goes and they donate it. It's kind of their
Oh,
way
wow.
of, yeah, it's a way for men and women on death row to give back to their communities and feel like, that they are making a change, and we still interact with them. We still, they're not so far away. Like, I guess it's nice. But that was a great, Jason is an amazing person to hear speak. He has a podcast as well, and
Okay.
he's awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was like my first time experiencing like a one-on-one conversation with someone who was like incarcerated. So it was like a really mind-blowing experience to just kind of like sit in that room and know that he's like miles away in a prison. He's been there for like 22 years. How long was he there for? Do you guys know? But
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
like
Yeah.
20-ish years. Yeah,
Yeah.
but his story was just super impactful. He kind of like the format of how we called him, he kind of gave us a background of like his crime and just how he's been dealing with being in prison and knowing he's on death row. And it really put it into perspective for me, just like how detrimental that must be, because it's already one thing to be in there all the time, but he was explaining experiences of how he's being persistently tormented like psychologically by like the correctional officers in there, how they like continue to remind him like, hey, you did this, you're a bad guy, you're gonna die. And it's just like that's it brought up the conversation of how we need reformative justice. And I'm someone who's very for reformative justice, and I'm very pro-abolitionist. So like, I think, and the thing with Jason too, he's very empathetic and he understands what he did was wrong. He himself even like confessed to his crime when it
Yeah, he
happened.
turned
He's
himself
someone,
in. Yeah.
yeah, he does not deny what he did, and I think someone like that deserves another chance. Like death penalty is just so, it's a disgrace to the, like, it's just a disgrace. Like, how, I just can't believe that that's something. And it was like such an amazing experience, very emotional, and everyone, even all our caseworkers, were very clearly like emotionally impacted. It was just very moving. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was also talking about, I thought was very important, censorship. A lot of the times with people who are incarcerated, you don't get to hear their stories at all. Whereas with innocence cases, you get to hear, hopefully, their side of the story. And I think that's why it's important, like with marketing and talking about people who are currently living through the system. Like, I believe that's the most, like, even just having a conversation with him was a step forward, because we just isolate people who are incarcerated without even giving them, a chance to tell their side of the story or their experiences. So just, he was very thankful. And I thought that was crazy because, these are real people who are living life with this constant threat or like impending doom upon them. I just thought it was crazy because censorship is just like a big issue generally, I feel like.
I was going to say it's such an important point that you raise because yes, once an exoneration is, brought forward and people's names are cleared, then we hear their story, but they are equally silenced when they're serving their sentence, right? Because they will be crying out potentially the loudest, that I didn't do it. Somebody please listen to me. But it's like you say, once we put them in a cage, then we forget about them and we don't listen to them and we assume that they're where they're supposed to be. And it is so easy to forget that these are people, right? And that's something I teach in my first class every semester when I teach my wrongful conviction class is that, these are real people with real lives and real stories. And, it's one thing to read about them, it's another to appreciate them as humans, not statistics, not stories, but, people. And I think it's something that is really easily overlooked.
Mhm.
Yep.
And yeah, I wanted to also like talk about because we do work. I think a lot of people are not uninterested in the work, but they jump to the conclusion that people who defend people in prison defend bad people, and like, oh, you're defending criminals and murderers and like all these things. But a big thing for us, and we talk about this all the time, I feel like we always kind of are reassuring ourselves we're not doing bad work, we're doing amazing work. But if one person doesn't have a right to a fair trial or doesn't have a right to due process, then why do you think and why do you believe you are entitled to due process? Why are these people different from you? And like that's a big thing. Without criminal defense lawyers, without people who defend rapists or defend like whatever it is, however you view it, these are people who are ensuring a system is working and it's following a process that ultimately protects everybody. I'm sure there's people that are like clearly guilty of their crimes and everybody just wants them to go to jail, but it doesn't work like that because if it worked like that, it could be you. And so that's also another thing about the work. It's we're not in the business of trying to prove everybody is innocent and just looking to prove somebody's innocence and like obsessing over the fact that somebody is innocent. A lot of it is just trying to make sure somebody gets a fair review of their conviction who is so like strong in saying they're innocent. Like that's all it is. It's all we're just reviewing something. We're not going to fight for somebody to be let out of prison or have their conviction overturned if there isn't actually something there telling us. I forget who was talking. Oh, Hamza, an attorney in Toronto who introduced us to Jason. He was saying like innocent people in jail who claim they're innocent, like that's something they do for their entire lifetime. Like there are people for 20 years they've been claiming they're innocent and they are facing life sentences. It's not it's not something that people do easily and they don't do it lightly, and it's really hard to say the same story over and over again with no holes in the story. I don't know, I feel like people don't always get the point of the work, and it's to ensure that there's a process put in place, and if the process is done properly, it can work. And yeah, like that's what we're interested in. We're interested in making sure the system is working to protect all of us.
Yeah. And making sure that we actually listen to people who are incarcerated and hear their
Exactly.
stories.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
all about humanizing them at the end of
Yeah.
the day. We have to remember they're people. They're people with experiences.
And I think that is such a great take home message to have. And, to think that you're the future of our criminal justice system. And it gives me so much hope that, we're on the right path, that if, we can continue to spread this kind of message, then, our system will be better than it is today as we move forward, right? Because it's all about, just learning from our past mistakes. And, it's really easy to make mistakes, but we need to learn from them and to do better after these kinds of things happen, right? So I'm inspired by the work that you do and that you have taken on, because it's not easy work. And, you're doing this on top of your studies, right? Like you all have your normal studies, and then this is like a side gig for you to be doing. And you do it with so much passion and energy. And it's just absolutely fantastic, because it's hard to find people with that drive to keep going, right? So you've got this group at TMU. Have you have you thought of maybe trying to expand and get other universities on board with you? Or is this something that is unique to TMU?
I think right now, since we're still such a new group, I think we forget that we've only been operating at TMU for, I believe, 4 months now. So it's a lot just for us like to, establish ourselves at the school. There's still some trials and tribulations just within the school itself. But Noella does a great job with marketing, and I think people take her marketing and they use that as inspiration for themselves. Like once other schools get hold of the content that she produces, they become aware that it's so local and something that they could do. I don't know if Noella wants to speak on the marketing
Yeah,
side.
yeah, for sure. I think some people like they see a post or they see us posting on Instagram as insignificant or like it's not gonna do much, but I honestly wholeheartedly believe that it does a lot. A lot of our followers also aren't just from TMU. So I think that once we've really grounded our group at TMU, there's definitely a lot we can do outside. And that's really the point of the club to keep the conversation going and draw more people to it, especially students. Because one thing about us, especially our generation, we won't shut up. If we know we see something that's wrong, we won't shut up. And I think that's really good and that's what we need. So yeah, I'm honestly so excited about like the future and who else we can bring onto this initiative.
So good. And honestly, this is something that I have not shut up about for like 20 plus years. So please keep the conversation going and never shut up about it, because, the problem is once we stop talking about it, then it's almost like we're giving this silent nod of approval, right? And definitely I don't want to do that anyways. I don't want to speak for you, but so in that sense, it's like, no, I'll always raise my voice and make things known, right? So
Yeah, that reminds me of that. I think there's a quote. Was it "Silence is complicity"?
It's a good quote. I know
It
what
is.
you're talking
I think
about.
we all know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah, I think if you're silent, you are choosing a side. I don't think being neutral or silent is the way to go about things, especially if you do have an opinion. I think it's important to let people know where you stand, because your voice, even if you think it's so small and insignificant, it really does make a huge difference. Like even us as like a group, me and the four of us talking to the attorney and letting him know that there are people who actually care to hear about somebody else's story, that made a huge difference for Jason. And, you know, the cases that we do take on, we're letting them know, like, we believe that you deserve a fair trial. And it's just the four of us who are taking on the case, but then there's a larger group of people who also back us up. So I think, yeah, silence, I never think it's a good route, especially if you care.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations about this before, like the importance of conversation, even with people who have like opposing views. Like there's no space to learn if there's not conversation. And we really, really prioritize like informing people about things that are happening in the world, like letting them know, like, we hear your side, but this is also our side. Like having a conversation that's like mutual and respectful, I think that's extremely important. And a lot of people don't want to have that because a lot of people are fixed in their view, but we need that. We need conversation. That's like how you move forward. That's how change really happens. And like Noella's like work of like posting social media, it might seem like minuscule. It's just like, oh, Gen Zs are just posting on Instagram, but it's so important because who knows who we're reaching, who's like reading that and being like, oh, I didn't know this, and they're gonna read more. Like all that kind of conversation and posts, like it's very important.
And
Yeah.
in the beginning, like we had the Instagram for no more than like a month and a half, and there was 30,000 people who had viewed our Instagram within like that month. So like
Wow.
there's yeah, I don't know, 'cause it's not been that long, but so much has happened and like it's just been going so well, and obviously there's things that are hard, but like it's been so nice. Like I don't know, we're all so into it and invested, and like I talk to Emily, Margaret, and Noella every day basically. It like feels like a full-time job, but it doesn't even, because it's just enjoyable and we're like actually helping people and we're meeting like such amazing people. I don't know. I feel like every day we meet new people that are just so amazing that you genuinely like want to be friends with. Like a lot of people in the legal field will say don't get emotionally invested, don't like get emotionally attached to people that you work with, which like obviously, yes, everything you do should be professional and healthy. But like I am emotionally invested. I care. Like I care that much, and like it does sometimes keep me up at night. It does make me cry, and like but as it should, 'cause it can be anybody. Like it doesn't matter if it's some stranger that I don't know that's going through this. It could be my neighbor, it could be my mom, it could be me. Like I don't know. I always say like I'm very emotionally invested. I want to be like friends with the people we meet. It's a community to me. It is like that's what it is. It doesn't feel like work. It really just feels like a community of people getting together to try and make important change, and it's so nice. Yeah.
I can absolutely confirm that the Innocence community, as they call themselves, is in fact a true community. And they are so welcoming and so appreciative and open to having new members join their community. Like they welcomed me with open arms, um, just because I was someone with a passion who cared, who wanted to be there, who wanted to help, who wanted to listen, who was an ally, right? Like, I mean, it was not an experience that I shared, and that didn't matter. You know, I'm not a trained lawyer. That didn't matter. I was still someone they could count on. And, you know that they're heard with me. And that is so important. And so, to your point, perhaps this is why I am not a trained lawyer, is because I am too emotionally invested in all the people that I meet. Some of my best friends are the exonerees that I met years ago and I've stayed in touch with. And now I'm like Auntie Kelly to their grandchildren who I've never met, right? But it's just, we've become so close this way. And you need that, right? And especially these people who have gone through some of the most horrific things that you could possibly imagine, to know that they have someone that they can trust is huge. And so it's not a position that I take lightly. And, and I just say this, that, everything you're doing is fantastic. Just know that, the position you hold is very special to these people, and it's not something to be taken lightly, which I'm sure you're all very well aware of.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think just even as like people who would want to go into law school, I don't think there's any harm in being emotional. I think that that's a strong suit if you connect with people and understand that the client on the other side is a real person, not just a job. Like, I think that's like this new perspective, or this perspective that we bring, that like humanizes people that we work with, is incredibly important, especially in law. Like, if we are one day trained legal professionals or lawyers, I think that's something that we don't want to lose. I would never want to lose my sense of emotion or, humility. I think that's incredibly important.
And I think that is such a fabulous point, and one that we will wrap up with for today. I think that just really, is a great capstone for our conversation. So I just want to thank you all so much for joining me again for today's conversation. It's been so enlightening. And like I say, the future is bright, knowing that you are the next generation of our criminal justice system, and the empathy and the passion that you bring with you into your work, and, carry on with so many great things that you have lying ahead, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And while today's letter may have piqued your interest, this is only part of the story. There's still so much more to tell. The effects of wrongful convictions are far-reaching. They touch us all. I'll write to you again soon as I continue my conversations with those whose lives have been impacted by a wrongful conviction. But until then, I remain wrongfully yours. If you have something that you want to talk about with me, or even if you want to just send me some words of encouragement, you can drop me a line at wrongfullyyourspodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out my website, kellylozon.ca, for more information about me and the kinds of things that I do. And if today's episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with others, liking and following the podcast on your favorite platforms so you don't miss what comes next. And as always, thank you for listening to Wrongfully Yours, where we believe that telling these stories is the first step towards preventing the next injustice. And until next time, stay curious, stay hopeful, and keep fighting for justice.